Growth is a key indicator of success in business, or is it?
There is a reason why we are mildly obsessed with growth as a nation. I think the best type of growth is planned growth.
I think some of that chaotic growth comes from not being clear on what you won't do.
What feels exciting for a co-founder or a founder is not necessarily exciting for the team.
Maintaining those growth rates and all of the kerfuffle that goes with it. I didn't think I'd say the word kerfuffle on this podcast. My mum will be so happy.
Growth is a key indicator of success in business, or is it? Today, we are talking about how growth can show a really healthy, booming business, but also how it can hide a broken one. And we are joined by Peter Czapp. Welcome to the office.
Hello.
Hello.
You all right?
Good to have you here.
It is. So I've got a good question to start off with. Is growth actually a measure of success, or is it just a socially accepted addiction within business?
So I definitely think it's part of the measure of success. I think there are other metrics that go with it to ensure that you have a healthy business, but it's definitely a key part. There is a reason why we are mildly obsessed with growth as a nation and certainly as business owners, because when done properly, I think it brings a whole load of good things into our worlds.
Well, what do you mean by properly then?
Well, that's a really good question. My view is I think the best type of growth is planned growth, where you really think carefully about how much you're going to grow, how you are going to grow, and what that will mean for your business. And you're really intentional about all of the component parts to your growth strategy. Because if you're just thinking about how you're going to acquire clients and not thinking about how you're going to deliver that work and how you're going to build your people architecture as you grow, then you will come unstuck.
Can we just be really specific about what we mean by growth as well? I think of it as a business that's growing is growing financially, but actually, we're also talking about other metrics, right? Like how many people are in the business and, if we got better clients, bigger clients.
Yeah, I'm often amused when you bump into people at network events and they talk about how the business is going, and they'll often say, we're up to this many staff now, as that being a sort of a sign of success. It's really not. And increasingly in the world of technology that we're living in, where we're able to do much, much more with fewer number of people, I think number of people as a measure of success has gone out the window. I think when we talk about growth, we talk about increasing in revenue for sure. But I think it's also growing in other areas. So looking at how you can grow your people experience, your customer experience, and the good that you're doing in the world, grow your purpose, grow the impact that you're having. I think those are some of the other interesting growth metrics that I'd love for businesses to be better connected with. I think it will do them a whole lot of good.
It's been really tough, right, over the last few years, but we become a little bit obsessed with actually we're growing because we're at this revenue, and have people, I guess, intentionally sort of left behind those other areas, or are you still seeing people growing in that really well-rounded way?
It's been a really, really challenging time for businesses, probably since COVID, but arguably a little bit before. There's been so much uncertainty, and it feels like that we've been squeezed. And when you're put in that position, almost a survival mode, the danger is that you take growth at any cost, and you do forget about those other metrics. You just think, well, crikey, we've shrunk or we've stood still, and so we have to now grow revenue, and that is the only thing that matters. And of course, it isn't the only thing that matters. It's never the only thing that matters. It is just one part of the jigsaw. So you're right, when times are tough, we do neglect the other metrics, but I'll also say that in the boom times, they get neglected too, because you're so focused on maintaining those growth rates and all of the kerfuffle that goes with it. I didn't think I'd say the word kerfuffle on this podcast. My mum will be so happy. There's a danger that you get caught up even in the boom times as well, and you forget those other metrics. So I think being conscious of them is really, really important.
Quite often, growth can just be momentum. I think what Pete's advocating is planned or strategic growth, where actually it is planned. You're very clear on what you will do, but also very clear on what you won't do. Chloe, let me ask you a question at this point. So what do you, from your perspective, what do you see as the costs of growth?
I think growth can be very exciting for founders and leadership teams perhaps, but I think, like we talked about there, if you don't have it planned out amongst the team into that level of detail, it can feel really disconcerting as an employee. There are definitely some people as an employee that will go, oh yeah, it's exciting because we're doing this, we're doing that. But what feels exciting for a co-founder or a founder is not necessarily exciting for the team. And I always wonder how do you make it really clear for them? How do you make it as exciting for them as it might be for people in your position?
How do you do that?
Get really clear on what that vision is and make sure I'm bringing people along. And I think also addressing, like, call a spade a spade. Like, yeah, this might feel tough. Like, this might mean that this bit is a bit unclear and we've got to work out what that looks like, but that's all part of it. And we might fail at this bit or we might be excellent at this bit. But I think you bring the team along with you is what I'm trying to say.
Promise you, the challenges that go with growth aren't anywhere near as tough as the challenges of not growing. And I think that's important to remind the team when you are going through those growth spurts and things are a little bit messy, is that there could be something to acknowledge that, but just to remind them, you'd rather have this than no growth, because there's an entirely different set of decisions that need to be made.
From a team perspective, yeah, obviously, like what we're talking about there is you might not have a job if we weren't in this place, and nobody wants that. Everyone wants that security. But I guess it doesn't make, if it's not done right, it doesn't make the ride any easier, does it?
What are the key components of getting it done right? Then you talked about the vision. Mm-hmm. From, I guess, both your perspectives, what do you see good growth looking like?
I maybe think about disciplined growth. And it's hard, right? Because you're in this state and actually everything's going really well, number one. So why change? Actually, everything's going well. Therefore, like, what I'm doing is right. I don't need to pay attention to these bits. But also, secondly, sometimes when you're growing at a rate, I'm fond of, like, the farmer's analogy, like, this is harvest time. I just need to be out harvesting. I've not got time to paint the fences. And that plays out in our businesses as well. But I think that disciplined growth is all about having a plan, having a strategy, that you're clear on what we're trying to achieve as an organisation, very clear on what we are going to do, very clear on what we're not going to do. So if you talk about good growth, the opposite to that would be bad growth, right? Disciplined growth versus chaotic growth. And I think some of that chaotic growth comes from not being clear on what you won't do. And you're like, oh, well, these people want us, so we'll do this and we'll do this and we'll do this. And before you know it, you're thinly spread, everyone's busy. That busyness and chaos then filters down through the organisation. There's risk of burnout.
Right at the forefront of that is ensuring that the new clients that you're winning are profitable. So it's profitable growth, because all of that chaos that we've talked about will definitely be on you a whole lot faster if you pick up unprofitable clients and you almost have to think you can buy your way to success by winning lower quality work. That is an absolute recipe for disaster. Just making sure that all the work you're picking up is at the right rates, at the right margins, because that then flows through.
Is that easier said than done, particularly when it's been tough times?
Yeah, because it is. You're right. It is easier said than done, because when you have a moments of scarcity, you slip into that scarcity mentality and you take anything. And certainly for a lot of people listening to this, they will notice that larger businesses have dropped down to their level and are pricing work far lower than they normally would in order to win it. And they have a choice on how they respond to that. And many businesses are simply saying, well, look, in order to keep the lights on, I need to take this work. And the danger is if you get into that habit, it clogs up your business. So the key is, how do you get out of that scarcity mentality? How do you get into the place of abundance? Well, that we're then sort of into the realms of building your new business pipeline, ensuring that your marketing is always on, getting into the daily, weekly habits that will mean that when you look at your pipeline, you say, well, actually, if I'm under price pressure from this prospect, it's okay because I've got enough going on. And that's the shift I think we need to make in order to get to that place of abundance.
So are you saying do them both at the same time, so you can is it possible to stick in that scarcity mentality of, hey, we'll take what we can get, but at the same time, we're going to build and, sort of secure for coming out of that mentality?
There'll be plenty of people listening to this who will say, look, I've had to take work below what I normally would, unprofitable work, in order to get through a period. I guess what I'm advocating is that should really be an exception, and to avoid it being a habit, there's some things that we all need to do to ensure that our pipeline is full, and it's about the discipline and focus on building a marketing machine that is generating you opportunities and being really real about that. So it's about being focused, having clear KPIs, and then the weekly discipline to do what we need to do to ensure that in 3 months' time, we don't have to make that decision that maybe we had to make today.
I think that kind of feeds into a little bit like culturally, like what you were talking about with how teams can feel busy. They can feel like pressure, right? They can feel that, you're trying to build this pipeline. You're still trying to serve who you've got coming in. Like, I'm always intrigued by that busyness that comes with growth, and how a team's mentality can change when they see, it's great news, isn't it? We've got a bigger client in, we've got more clients in. Like, how can you help the team to see it as that exciting opportunity and to work smarter, not harder in that instance, rather than just feel that swamp of busyness?
If half the team is you're picking up new business and half the team's thinking, oh my God, not another one, that kind of sounds a bit wacky, but like the universe has got a way of rewarding you, right? So you need to be ready and open for work. And I think it just comes back to structure, doing it in a structured way. I don't know anyone that's part of a successful business that just turns up and does a straightforward 9 to 5 without any stress whatsoever. Just accepting that there is there's peaks and troughs, there's levels of friction, making sure that it's not that high intensity the whole time. I think that's when it gets hard. But then offering the support, being pragmatic, that this isn't just an expectation of like, look, this is a busy period we're going through. Actually, we'll do this, and then we'll have some time to catch our breath in the downtime. Making sure people have got the right tools, some like really basic things, make life easier. But fundamentally, if everyone feels like they're on the same mission, it's a lot easier when you go through those periods than if you're not clear on why you're growing or what you're growing for.
A key part of that is understanding capacity as well. So being really clear about what is our capacity in each department, communicating that with the team, and helping them understand, well, actually, look, you might feel busy, but according to the number of people and the number of hours, we should have plenty of capacity here. So what is going on? Rather than just, there's been plenty of businesses out there that have responded to a cry for help from their team, we're too busy, by hiring people without actually doing the analysis. Just stop in those moments and go, hang on, how many people, how many hours, how much work have we got on here? What is the issue? And that's where it starts to get interesting. Are you over-servicing clients? Are there training needed? Have you got the right people in the right seats doing the right type of work? It's really powerful once you have that data.
Yeah, it's important to go to that level of detail, isn't it? Because I think otherwise there's this sort of disconnect between a leadership team and the people on the ground doing the work of, well, this is the number of hours and this is what you should be able to do. And when they hear that message, that can feel really uncomfortable. And I think what you've just mentioned there about going to that deeper level of, so what is not allowing us to do that? Are we over-servicing? Like, it's not just an easy, this is what it should be. It's actually work that needs to be done.
Yeah, but I think getting on the same side of the table as them and looking at the problem together and saying, well, look, we've got these hours, but I can see you're all busy. I can see you're all flat out. What do we think's going on here? And looking at the problem together rather than across the table from someone in an adversarial way, I think that's where the real power is. And try and solve these problems together, because it's not straightforward. Otherwise, we'd all be doing it brilliantly well. It is complex, and trying to solve them whilst all the parts are moving is a real challenge. But if you can engage your team in solving those challenges and work together, I think you'll end up in a really good place.
I love that idea of working with your team, and I feel like that helps really cement a growth mindset throughout your whole business, right? If you're there with them and they can see you working with them, that's really important. So what else can you do to help build like, you know, a growth and profit culture within your business?
Very few businesses talk about profit. It's almost like profit's a dirty word, isn't it? And actually just being happy to talk about profit as a like good thing, as a necessary thing for the business to function, and making that link between profitability and sustainability of the business, but also, you know, for everyone involved in the business, profits how we get to develop our careers, profits how we get to do a load of that fun stuff that we do, profits how we can have time to invest in whatever it is that we want to invest in.
How have we got to this point, though, where people see profit as a dirty word? Or I find this baffling, because I'm like, well, obviously we need profit. Maybe I've just come from a really good background, but like, obviously we need profit to keep a business functioning.
So I think like my take is like some of it is like culturally, if you read the news, it will talk about, if you see the word profit in a newspaper or on a news website, it's rarely oh wow, it's amazing, this company's made great profits. It's always about, you'd link profits with fat cats and profits with like abuses of power, and profit in the media would generally be a negative thing. Have you seen the size of profits they're making? When we talk about profit, we're not talking about like oversized profit, or we're not talking about like any sort of like abuse here. What we're just talking about is a healthy, sustainable level of profit, and that's not great for any media outlet, is it?
No, it's a really good point, isn't it? Like, so it's actually not come from us as business people, it's actually just come from culture and society. So at WOW, I think there's a really great culture around understanding what profit can do for a business. Was that something that you intentionally set out to achieve right at the beginning, or have you just grown that over the years?
Yeah, so there's a real like honest thing there, is that Pete's always just been really adamant that we talk about this. It's probably me that's, of the two of us, been a bit more reticent. Like in the early days of WOW, Pete and I went to see Stephen Covey talk, and he talked about shining a light. And actually, the more transparent that we've been, the more sort of like laying it all out there, saying, look, here's what it is. Not this is good or this is bad necessarily, but look, here's where we're at. Share it. The more that we've shared, the better the response, higher engagement, greater connection we've had.
It's that engagement bit that I've really loved seeing people understand the profitability of their department, and then really wanting to and engaging in that process of increasing it, because they know that leads to good things. If you want to build your team within a department, well, we need profit to do that. And I think watching people go on that journey has been really, really enjoying over the last few years. Really fulfilling.
But like, what about when it's difficult? Have you had, I don't know whether you've had a time at WOW, whether you want to talk about a time at WOW, but have you had an experience where it's not been?
But I think it helps in the trickier times as well. If you think back to like the lockdowns when that first happened, that like no one knew what was going to happen to the world. We didn't know. Obviously, we didn't know what was going to happen to our business. But I think the more transparent we were, the greater sense of kind of like security that gave people, as much security you could have in that situation. Pete and I are reasonable at what we do, but we're lucky enough to have a team of highly talented people, probably the majority of which are smarter than us at this stage. And actually, why would you not involve a bunch of really smart people in solving the problem? But I think there's just that, at the core of it is that trust piece about, look, here's where we're at.
You've listened to some of those conversations. You've ever heard those conversations, being part of them. What's your take when we talk about profit, when we share that information?
I think what's really interesting when you guys do it is that it doesn't come with an emotional attachment. And I think that's like when you guys aren't showing fear or worry or concern, but you are, like you said, just placing it on the table to say, this is where we're at and this is what this means. I think it helps to keep people calm and go, okay, well, or celebrate if needed or whatnot, but to actually just see it as it is and be more of a practical conversation than an emotional one. And I'm a big advocate for trying to detach emotion from potentially scary situations when it comes to business anyway, right? Because that's when you can have knee-jerk reactions or whatnot. But I hear this a lot when I'm talking to agency owners, business owners who say, oh gosh, if I shared those numbers with my team, like, they'd be looking for other jobs or they'd be doing that. And personally, speaking for myself, I've never had that worry or concern, because it's just about how you can make it better. So I think it is about the way that you present it, not just what is put in front of you.
And doing it consistently. I think if the only time that you shared the numbers was when there's a crisis, then I can see that happening. Or if you didn't explain why,
or worse still, you only share them when they're good, because then when you don't share them, people wonder what the hell's going on, and that's where the fear comes in. But this is borne out in some of the BenchPress data as well. One of the reports released this year shows a very, very clear correlation between growth and profitability and those businesses that not only have plans but share them fully with their team. So they're really building that alignment. They grow quicker and they make more profit.
So you said right at the beginning that, there's good growth, there's bad growth. Can you highlight some differences for us?
You're basically just growing off the back of momentum. And then sort of like growth is really just a vanity thing rather than, and at some point down the line, you're always going to pay the price for that. So the saying, it's like when the tide goes out, you see he's swimming without their shorts on. So it's the same thing, that kind of growth, the unplanned growth stops at some point. And like probably like growth doesn't go in straight lines, right? It goes in peaks and troughs. And when that growth flattens out is kind of where is the equivalent of the tide going out, and you see actually what's behind the scenes.
And what tends to be behind the scenes when it is unplanned is lack of resourcing. So there will be big holes in certain parts of the business. The people architecture hasn't really been thought through, and people haven't been managed properly. Some of the systems and processes and perhaps technology again has been forsaken. And it's that structure. I guess some of the less sexy stuff to when you're winning clients and growing your top line revenue. But those are the bits that absolutely matter. And if you don't put them right as you go through, you're going to have to put them right retrospectively. But putting them right retrospectively always comes at a cost. It's always a lot messier. And I think if you are not inclined towards those operational elements of the business, the people, the systems, the processes, you need to find someone who is, to allow you to lead the growth spurt, knowing that you've got someone else or a team of people that are actually there filling in the gaps as you go. Because if you don't, then there's going to be trouble.
Because without stating the obvious, like if you grow from say 3 million to 5 million, the infrastructure you need at 5 million is different than what you need at 3 million or 1 million or whatever. And it's hard at 3, if you're growing through 3 million, to be thinking about putting in the infrastructure for 5 million. But actually you're going to hit 5 million at one point and you need that infrastructure. So when does it happen? I think what we see a lot is businesses sort of like blowing through sort of like 3 million on their way to 5 million, but they've still got the same infrastructure that they had when they were 1 million. You think about that in terms of team dynamics as well. You end up with sort of like 30, 40 people, but you've got the same sort of like organizational structure that you had when you were 12 or 15 people and you first had to think about organizational structure. I don't think there's a right time to do it. And you probably are, to some extent, always playing a bit of catch up, but the issue is when it's neglected for too long.
And that's where the planning comes in. Actually working with someone who's taken a business through that growth journey that you're about to go on, that knows the pitfalls. Like, we see it with our clients, particularly around the financial infrastructure. So for most people listening to this, there'll be service businesses. And as you grow, your biggest cost as a service business is your people. And what tends to happen is you tend to win bigger clients with bigger budgets, with larger invoices, with longer payment terms. And Suddenly, instead of issuing 10 grand invoices, you're issuing 100 grand invoices that don't get paid for 90 days. And yet at that moment that you have this cash flow challenge, you have the biggest cost base you've ever had. And that's where a lot of very good businesses unfortunately come unstuck, because they didn't see it coming. And that's why it's important to sit down and do the proper planning with experts, people who've been on the journey, know the pitfalls. That's really, really crucial.
So I hear what you're saying, right? We want planned growth. But
Yes, please.
yes, but we're not gonna say no to unplanned growth, are we? Like, we talked about momentum there. Is there something, like, not just a little bit exciting about, oh my goodness, we weren't expecting this, and yet we've just skyrocketed? Like, how do we get on top of that? Because we're not going to say no to it.
You can't plan everything down to the finest detail. It's really just setting those guardrails or that framework for your growth so it's not accidental.
When those big opportunities come along, I still think there's a moment where you have to go, right, this is incredibly exciting. Obviously, we're going to take it on. But what are we going to sacrifice by doing this? And being really conscious about the decisions that you're going to make. So this is going to be a bit hairy, but we're going to consciously say we're going to just not do these 3 things, but we are going to do these. And doing that consciously, explaining it to the team, I think really helps. It's when you're not conscious about it and you just sweep it under the carpet and forget about it and hope it'll be okay. It won't be, and it will come back to bite you. So I think just being aware when those big opportunities come along, and God, yeah, they're so exciting. They're so exciting. You've got to take them. That's why we do this, right? Those moments where you're punching the air. That's what we dreamt of, right? So you've got to grab them. But I think being conscious about what you might need to let go of, I think, is important. And one of the things I just don't think we should say no to is ensuring that we hit those profit numbers. So for service businesses, that will be 50% gross profit and 20% operating profit, and just having them as absolutely non-negotiable in your business. And the reason for that is because everything good that will come in your business will come from profit. So if you want to invest in the future, you'll need profit. If you want to invest in your people experience, in your client experience, you'll need profit. If you want to create further opportunities for your team and explore new avenues of growth, you will need profitability to do it. And it also provides you with a wonderful, stable buffer, because profit is the precursor to cash. And without cash, we don't have a business. So that, for me, is one of the things that we should never say no to, is ensuring that our businesses are profitable.
Yeah, and I guess all of the good bits of growth come through profit and profitable growth, and all of the negative attributes of growth come through lack of profit and lack of cash, don't they?
When do we bring in the allure and excitement of working with a dream client? Like, would you negotiate on profitability if it was somebody that would give you a bit more fame, a bit more clout? What do we think about it in that sense?
So I think you'd need to look at it on a case-by-case basis.
As long as you are, again, I've used this word a lot today, consciously using that as an opportunity either to take that dream client and use the fame to expand into other similar clients and more profitable work, or you're actually taking that client and say, look, we're going to take a 12, 18-month view on this and expand the account into some of the more profitable areas of work that we offer. As long as you're doing that consciously and you know what you're getting yourself in for, then I think that's okay. But too many of them, it's about habits. If you keep picking up clients that look great on your roster, but you never turn them into profitable clients, and you never use them as opportunities to expand elsewhere, then you're going to end up with a load of unprofitable clients, and that's a real danger.
So I think the main thing that I'm taking from both of you today is be intentional, be conscious, and like plan as much as you possibly can. And that's not just metrics as far as like financials go. That's how you grow your team, what tech you put in place. That's everything, right? You've got to be intentional.
Yeah, and that's a lot easier when you're thinking a bit further ahead. And so the question I'd ask anyone is, when they look at their forecast, are they forecasting for the next quarter? Are they forecasting for the next year? You can't forecast the next 3 years in detail, but you should at least have an idea of what the business is going to look like in 3 years' time, what you want the business to look like in 3 years' time, so you can be intentional about what you're doing. And actually, once you start looking at least 3 years out and work back, you can start seeing, well, actually, if we're going to get to this point, these are the things that we need to be working on to get there. And if that 3-year sort of like horizon is consistently being updated, you've at least got some sort of sensible, tangible planning time frame. I think if you're planning for sort of like 5 or 10 years, it can sometimes feel a bit too far out of reach. But actually, if you think about 3 years, 3 years from today, in 18 months we'll be halfway there, right? And you can think sort of like 18 months out, can't you? So 3 years is I find quite a tangible time horizon.
And looking at the key metrics that show that you're on track on that horizon too. So growth will be one of them for sure, as will profit. But when we look in our business, the metrics that we also look at is our NPS, our Net Promoter Score, how well we are engaging with our clients. Our ENPS as well, our Employee Net Promoter Score. So how engaged our team are. And we break that down into, the 10 metrics or 10 components of employee engagements, and understanding those alongside our growth and profitability, I think are key on that journey.
Yeah, so I guess what we're looking at there is like the leading indicators. Our ENPS, our employee NPS, and our customer NPS, so people satisfaction, client satisfaction, are the leading indicators of success, right? To a large degree, profit and growth are actually lagging indicators. You can't go out and do profit, it's a factor of other things leading up to it. I think those businesses that we look at, that we admire, they always have happy and engaged teams and clients who love what they do, right? And that's probably, if you're going to focus your efforts somewhere, that's the way to plan your growth.
I spoke to a service business that has grown massively over the past 5 years. They've moved from 2 people to 14 people. They're on the journey to sort of over 2 mil now. They've grown massively. And so I asked them some of these questions, and I'm just intrigued to hear your thoughts on their answers. So one of the things that they said was that they had a target to grow year on year at a 20% growth rate. And I just thought that was quite interesting. Is there a sweet spot for the aim of how somebody should grow year on year? Is 20% a good number? What does good look like?
There's a pragmatic point here that businesses, organizations, nothing in life grows in straight lines. And that actually that 20% growth on a spreadsheet looks really good. And some people can do it, but actually sometimes to achieve those set growth things, it can take an awful lot of friction because you're having to force it. We sit with venture-backed businesses where it's sort of like the investors are saying, right, we need to be at this point, this point, this point, this point. And actually there's so much friction, wasted energy just trying to hit a growth number. So if you can accept that businesses don't grow in straight lines, yes, we'll have a growth ambition or growth aspiration, but instead of looking year on year, my thing would be, where do we want to be in 3 years' time? And actually we might not go directly there, sort of like A to B from here to where we want to be. We'll grow at different rates over that period. But I think the other point about a 20% compound growth rate is those numbers quite quickly get very big. And I suppose you can plan for that in a way. You can make sure that you've got the sales and marketing operation. You can make sure you've got the delivery. But I'm not sure that there are too many businesses, certainly not privately owned businesses, that have that really sweet sort of like growth curve like that.
So I asked what had been the best and worst part about growing as they have done over the past few years. They said that the best part has been the people part, watching the team grow, take more responsibility. They find it thrilling. The scale of the projects has got bigger, just all of that exciting stuff. But they did say that the worst part is the sheer volume of work and the reliance on the growth of the team to keep bringing in new business. And they said, and I thought this was very interesting, by definition, growing means you're operating at or over capacity. Wonder what your thoughts were.
Not necessarily. Not if you've planned it. And the bit about the necessity to bring work in, yeah, for sure, that's there. But there's things that you can do to mitigate it. So one of the things that we were absolutely adamant about right from the start was building in recurring revenue into our business model. In fact, all of the businesses that we've set up over the years, right at the core has been recurring revenue. And that recurring revenue has given us incredible stability, confidence, the ability to look ahead, the ability to take a long-term view and make bold decisions in the moment, knowing that we have this base, this solid base to work from.
It's more predictable, isn't it?
Yeah, way more predictable. And so, yeah, there is a greater pressure, but you can alleviate that pressure so much by building in recurring revenue and long-term contracts and ensuring that your sales pipeline is always on and always working. So the classic in a small business is, you win the work and then you do the work, but then you're not marketing and then you drop back down and you go through these cycles. We made sure right from the start, and we advocated for all our clients, no, your sales and marketing engine remains always on. And if you can build in that recurring revenue each year, you just start from a higher point, and that makes everything a lot easier. Certainly makes growth a lot easier.
We have some listener questions. So, what is the true cost of growth?
Oh, can we talk about the cost of not growing? Can we change the question?
No, surely we can talk about both. Go on.
Go on then. I'll answer the cost of not growing. I think if you're not growing, then you're stagnating. And that's not a great place to be. And unless, of course, it's intentional because you decided you've got a lifestyle business and you don't want to grow revenue and you're comfortable with costs maybe creeping up, then as long as that's okay with you. But the consequences of not growing for a business with people is it stifles opportunities for those people. When you're growing, naturally, there are opportunities for progression within the business. But when that's not happening, then people get stifled. And when they get stifled, then they tend to look elsewhere for gaining the next step in their careers. So I think there's a bigger cost to not growing than the cost of growing.
The cost of growth is what we talked about right at the beginning, is that like addiction piece. Because actually, if you're not growing, like you just said, there's a whole load of things that come as a consequence to that. But also that means you're constantly striving to grow and you're always looking for better and you're always looking for more profit, bigger clients, whatever that looks like. And I guess that can not take a toll because it should be exciting, but equally you're never switching off, are you? You're never calming down. It could lead to burnout from a health perspective, all of that stuff. What do you think about
that? Very good point. And we have often found ourselves in situations where we have needed encouragement to stop and pause and look back at how far we have come and celebrate how far we have come before we then go chasing the next milestone. So I think you're right. It's a very good point. The addictive nature of it. And if that robs you of being in the moment and celebrating success personally and with your team, then I'd probably say that's a real shame. And that is a big cost.
I think the other bit is that I'll be happy when trap, that with when I get to the next milestone, when I get to the next bit, I'll be happy then. And even if you're not saying that explicitly, I guarantee there's a bunch of people listening to this, watching this, that can identify with I'll be happy when, and you just keep going and a bit more and a bit more and a bit more.
So just on that point, if you're not happy with what you have now, then you'll never be happy with what you have then. And I think just appreciating exactly where you're at, all of the amazing things that are going on in your business right now, right this moment, I think it's a really good place to be. It doesn't stop you striving for what's next, but I think that appreciation grounds you.
Yeah, I love that. I completely agree. And you're really great at helping us do that, because I'm the one in our relationship that's like, you always see what's wrong and what needs fixing, and you're always kind of, because I'm like a planner, if you like, my head's always sort of like 2 or 3 years in the future, so I know what it can be and what it could be, but the point is you never get to that point, and all we have is today. Whether or not that stays in, I don't care. Okay, our final listener question: how do I know if my business is broken?
So some of the metrics we talked about earlier, the leading indicators around your team connection. So we use a tool called Office Vibe with our team at WOW. We send out mini surveys that assesses how well engaged they are across the 10 metrics of employee engagement, and seeing how that has changed over time. It's an early warning system. You know, there's an issue here in this particular department or across the business. It looks like people are really disconnected with our vision. That is one of the clues to a broken business. Again, when you look at your customer satisfaction, I think actually your customer satisfaction is so often linked with your team satisfaction. I think it's the team. For me, it always comes down to the team. That would be a key metric of a broken business.
Well, from what I've learned from both of you today, I would say if you are growing in a way that isn't planned, it feels a little bit out of control. You know, if you've not got an idea of where you're headed, but you're just maybe living too much in the moment, to counteract what we just talked about, like that probably is an indicator that it's a little bit broken and that you need to do a bit of planning, a bit of stabilizing so that you can move forward more intentionally.
So we've talked a lot about growth as if growth is a choice and open to everyone. And actually what we've seen over the last couple of years, certainly the start of this year, is like growth's hard for some people, growth's hard for a lot of people. What advice would you have, Pete, to anyone who'd frankly just love any type of growth at the minute, but is currently searching for growth?
It is challenging at the moment. There's lots that's out of our control. And I think in those moments where there's so much going on that's out of our control, what we need to do is just take it back to something very, very simple. What is within our control? And by really clearly identifying what habits do we want to get into every single day? How do we want to spend our time? Where's our focus? And being really disciplined about only doing the things that really matters, that will allow us to take a step forward positively, and do so without all of the swirling news stories that are surrounding us. So focus on what you can control, and it always leads to a good place.
Pete, thanks so much for joining us this week. Absolutely love the conversation. Thanks for your insight. Thanks for your time. Thanks for sharing with us. And thanks everyone for watching. See you on the next episode.